There comes a moment in life, one defining, soul-shaking moment, when you look in the mirror and ask yourself, is this all I am? Maybe it happens after years of bending over backward for people who never truly see you. Maybe it's after sacrificing your dreams to keep others happy, or maybe it hits you when you're alone, exhausted, drowning in the weight of everyone else's expectations, except your own. You see, life has a cruel way of testing us, of seeing how much we will tolerate before we finally break. It strips us down, piece by piece, whispering lies that we are not enough, that we must prove our worth, to be loved, to be respected, to be valued. And so we give, we shrink, we silence ourselves in the hopes that one day someone will finally see our worth. But what if I told you that respect, true, undeniable, unshakable respect, doesn't start with them. It starts with you. Think about it. Would you respect a person who constantly betrays themselves just to be accepted? Would you admire someone who lets their dreams collect dust while they build someone else's empire? Would you follow a leader who never stands up for what they deserve? Then why do you expect the world to respect you when you won't even respect yourself? The truth is, respect is not given. It is not begged for. It is not earned through self-sacrifice. Respect is claimed. It is demanded. It is built from within. You cannot wait for the world to give you permission to stand tall. You cannot wait for love, money, or success to validate your worth. The day you stop tolerating less than you deserve is the day your entire life changes. Are you ready for that day? Are you ready to break free from the chains of self-doubt and reclaim your power? Because once you do, once you finally respect yourself first, you become unstoppable. There was a time when I tolerated things I shouldn't have. Maybe you have too. A friend who constantly canceled plans but expected me to drop everything for them. A boss who piled more work on my desk while my colleagues left early. A relationship where I gave and gave until there was nothing left of me. And each time I told myself the same lie. It's okay. Maybe next time will be different. But it never was. Because here's the truth. People will treat you exactly the way you allow them to. Every time you let something slide, every time you ignore that gut feeling screaming that something isn't right, you are silently telling the world, this is acceptable. This is how I deserve to be treated. Think about it. Have you ever met someone who radiated confidence, who walked into a room and instantly commanded respect? Not because they demanded it with words, but because their presence alone made it clear they would never settle for less than they deserved. Now ask yourself, why does the world respect them but overlook you? The answer is simple, because they have taught people how to treat them, and so have you. I learned this lesson the hard way. I remember a job where I stayed late every night taking on responsibilities that weren't mine, hoping my hard work would be recognized. But instead of appreciation, I was given more work, more expectations, more pressure, and I took it. Until one day I looked around and realized something. The people who had set boundaries, the ones who refused to be overworked, were the ones getting ahead. They weren't exhausted, they weren't stressed, they were respected. That's when it hit me. Respect isn't about being the nicest person in the room. It's not about bending over backward, proving your worth, or waiting for someone to finally acknowledge you. Respect is about boundaries, the lines you draw, the standards you uphold, the message you send through your actions, not your words, about what you will and will not accept. So let me ask you, where in your life are you allowing disrespect? Is it in your friendships? The ones where you're always the one making the effort, always the one reaching out while they treat you like an afterthought? Is it at work where you let your boss overload you, afraid to say no because you don't want to seem difficult? Is it in love where you excuse broken promises, inconsistencies, or emotional neglect because you'd rather have something than nothing at all? You must understand this. People do not change because you tolerate their behavior. They change because they are forced to. When you start respecting yourself, when you start enforcing your boundaries, you will lose people. And that's a good thing, because the ones who leave were only there because they benefited from your lack of self-respect. So how do you change it? How do you start teaching people to treat you differently? First, you decide what you will no longer accept. Make it crystal clear to yourself. No more answering texts at midnight for people who only reach out when they need something. No more agreeing to plans you don't want just to keep the peace. No more saying it's fine when it's not fine. Then you communicate your boundaries without apology. You don't need to explain. You don't need to justify. I can't make it. That doesn't work for me. I need to be treated with respect. Simple, direct, firm. And most importantly, you enforce those boundaries with action. If someone repeatedly disrespects you, walk away. If a situation continues to drain you, remove yourself. Words mean nothing without action. I won't lie to you. This won't be easy. People who have benefited from your lack of boundaries will resist. They will push back. They will try to guilt you, manipulate you, make you feel selfish. And in those moments, you will be tempted to fall back into old habits, to shrink yourself again just to keep the peace. But you must remember this. Your self-respect is worth more than someone else's temporary approval. Because when you start showing up for yourself, when you start standing firm in what you deserve, everything changes. You stop attracting users and manipulators, and you start attracting people who respect you. You stop feeling exhausted and start feeling empowered. You stop waiting for the world to give you what you deserve and start claiming it for yourself. So I ask you again, what are you allowing in your life that is beneath you? What have you been tolerating in silence? And more importantly, are you ready to stop? Because the moment you do, the moment you finally teach people how to treat you, you will step into a power that cannot be ignored. And that is where your true success begins. There was a time when I thought I had to prove my worth. Maybe you've felt that too. I thought if I worked harder, if I pleased more people, if I sacrificed enough, someone, anyone, would finally look at me and say, "You are enough." But no matter what I did, that validation never came. And do you know why? Because I was looking for something outside of myself that could only come from within. Your worth is not up for negotiation, not with your boss, not with your partner, not with your so-called friends, and certainly not with society. But let's be real. How often do we let the world dictate our value? Think about it. Have you ever let someone's rejection make you question yourself? Have you ever lowered your standards because you were afraid of being alone? Have you ever stayed in a situation that drained you just because you didn't believe you deserved better? If you have, you're not alone. We've all been there. We've all been taught in one way or another that our worth is something we must earn. But here's the truth most people never realize. Your worth was never meant to be bargained with. You are not a product on a shelf with a price tag that changes based on how much someone is willing to pay. You do not become more valuable because someone chooses you, and you do not become less valuable because someone does not. Let me tell you a story. There was a woman I knew, smart, strong, full of potential, but she was stuck in a job where she was underpaid, overworked, and constantly disrespected. She had ideas, big ones, but every time she spoke up, she was dismissed. She wanted to ask for a raise, but the voice in her head whispered, "What if they say no? What if they think you're not worth it?" So she stayed silent, and the more she tolerated, the smaller she became. One day, after yet another meeting where her contributions were ignored, she had a realization. She had been waiting for someone else to see her value before she allowed herself to believe in it. She had given away all her power, hoping that someone else would give it back to her. So she made a decision. She walked into her boss's office and said, "I know what I bring to this company, and I refuse to be undervalued any longer." She laid out everything she had done, the results she had achieved, and the salary she deserved. And do you know what happened? They gave her the raise. Not because they suddenly realized she was valuable, but because she finally acted like it. Now, let's be honest, not every story ends that way. Sometimes when you stand up for yourself, people will say no. Sometimes they will walk away. Sometimes they will tell you that you are asking for too much, expecting too much, dreaming too big, and when that happens, you will be tempted to believe them. But let me ask you, if someone cannot see your worth, is it because you are not valuable, or is it because they are incapable of recognizing what stands before them? Diamonds do not lose their value just because someone doesn't understand their worth. Gold does not stop being gold because someone refuses to pay its price. And you do not become less valuable because someone fails to appreciate you. So how do you start owning your worth? First, stop seeking permission to believe in yourself. No one else has the right to decide what you are worth. Not your boss, not your partner, not your past. You set the standard, and the world will either rise to meet it or it won't. But that is not your concern. Second, Never lower your standards out of fear of rejection, fear of loneliness, fear of failing. Fear will always try to convince you to settle for less than you deserve. But let me tell you something. Settling does not bring security. It brings regret. It keeps you trapped in a life that is smaller than the one you were meant for. And finally, walk away when necessary. This is where most people struggle. They set the standard, but when the world tests them, they waver. They stay in relationships where they are not cherished. They remain in jobs where they are not valued. They accept treatment that chips away at their self-respect. But let me tell you this. What you walk away from defines you just as much as what you accept. If you want the world to respect you, start by respecting yourself enough to leave situations that do not honor your worth. So I ask you, where in your life have you been negotiating your worth? Where have you been waiting for someone else to give you permission to take up space, to demand more, to step into your power? And more importantly, are you finally ready to stop waiting? Because the moment you do, the moment you start acting like the person you were born to be, the world will have no choice but to take notice. There was a time when I thought saying yes made me a good person, a likable person. I thought that agreeing to every request, showing up for everyone, and never disappointing anyone meant I was doing the right thing. But do you know what it actually did? It exhausted me. It drained me. It made me feel invisible in my own life. Because every time I said yes to someone else, I was saying no to myself. Sound familiar? Have you ever agreed to plans you didn't want just to avoid an awkward conversation? Have you ever taken on extra work because you didn't want to seem unhelpful? Have you ever let someone cross a line because you didn't want to seem difficult? If you have, you're not alone. We've been conditioned to believe that saying no is rude, selfish, even unkind. But let me tell you something that will change your life. No is not a bad word. No is a complete sentence. Think about the most powerful, respected people in the world. Do you think they say yes to everything? Do you think they allow others to control their time, their energy, their priorities? No. They guard their boundaries like their life depends on it, because in many ways, it does. They understand that every yes must be worth it, and every no is a declaration of self-respect. Let me tell you a story. I once knew a woman who was the go-to person for everyone in her life. Need help moving? Call her. Need a last-minute favor? She's got it. Need someone to listen, to support, to drop everything for you? She was there. But when she needed something, when she was exhausted, overwhelmed, and needed support, where was everyone? Nowhere to be found. And do you know why? Because she had trained them to believe that her needs came second. One day she reached her breaking point. She looked in the mirror and asked herself, why does no one show up for me the way I show up for them? And then it hit her, because she had never required them to. She had spent years prioritizing everyone else while abandoning herself. So she made a decision. She was going to start saying no. No to the people who only called when they needed something. No to the obligations that drained her. No to the guilt that had kept her trapped for so long. At first, people were shocked. They pushed back. They called her selfish. They tried to make her feel guilty. But the more she said no, the more she realized something powerful. The people who truly valued her respected her boundaries, and the ones who didn't were only there for what she could give them. Now let me ask you, who in your life has been taking more than they give? What obligations have you been carrying that don't belong to you? Where have you been sacrificing your peace just to keep others comfortable? And more importantly, how much longer are you willing to do it? Here's the truth. Every time you say yes to something you don't want, you are giving away a piece of your life that you will never get back. Time is your most valuable asset, and if you do not protect it, people will take it. Not because they're bad people, but because you have allowed it. So how do you start saying no? First, realize that you do not owe anyone an explanation. No does not require a justification. No does not mean you are mean or selfish. No simply means that you are prioritizing what matters to you. Second, understand that saying no does not make you unkind. It makes you honest. What's more disrespectful? Saying yes to something you don't want to do and resenting it, or being upfront about your boundaries? True kindness is rooted in authenticity, not obligation. Third, practice enforcing your boundaries with confidence. The first few times will be uncomfortable. You will feel guilty. People will push back. But the more you do it, the more you will realize that the world does not end when you prioritize yourself. In fact, something incredible happens. You gain respect, you gain peace, you gain freedom. Because here's what no one tells you. When you stop saying yes to everything, your yes becomes more valuable. People start to appreciate your time because they know you don't give it away freely. They start respecting your boundaries because they see that you respect yourself. And most importantly, you finally have time and energy for the things that actually matter to you. So I ask you, what are you saying yes to that is keeping you from the life you deserve? What could change if you started saying no? And more importantly, are you ready to take back control of your life, one simple, powerful word at a time? Have you ever walked into a room and felt invisible? Have you ever spoken only to have your words fall on deaf ears? Have you ever watched as others less capable, less deserving, were given opportunities that should have been yours? If you have, then you know the frustration, the quiet rage, the painful realization that people don't always see your value. But here's the question that changes everything. Do you see it? Because the truth is, people respect those who carry themselves with confidence, those who walk with certainty, those who do not ask for respect but expect it. Through the way they move, the way they speak, the way they refuse to shrink themselves. I once knew a man who had all the talent in the world. He was intelligent, hardworking, and filled with ideas that could change the game in his industry. But there was a problem. He never owned his space. In meetings, he spoke hesitantly, as if he was waiting for permission. When he introduced himself, he did it quietly, as if apologizing for existing. And do you know what happened? People ignored him. Not because he wasn't brilliant, not because he didn't have value, but because he didn't command respect. One day, after yet another meeting where his ideas were overlooked, I asked him, "Do you believe in yourself as much as you want others to?" He was silent. Because deep down, he knew the answer. And maybe you do too. Maybe you've been waiting for the world to see you before you decide to see yourself. Maybe you've been hoping that respect will be given to you if you just prove yourself enough, if you just work harder, if you just keep your head down and wait your turn. But let me tell you something that will set you free. Respect is not given, it is claimed. And you claim it by stepping into your power. How? You start by changing the way you carry yourself. Because before you ever say a word, before you ever prove your worth, before anyone even knows your name, your energy speaks for you. Walk with confidence, shoulders back, head high, move with purpose. When you enter a room, do not do it timidly. Do it like you belong there, because you do. And when you speak, speak with certainty. Stop apologizing for having an opinion. Stop watering down your words to make others comfortable. Stop hesitating as if your thoughts don't matter. People respect those who respect themselves enough to speak with conviction. Look at the most respected people in any field. Business leaders, athletes, artists, activists. Do they second-guess themselves? Do they downplay their abilities? No. They step into the world with a presence that says, "I am here and I matter." And because they believe it, the world believes it too. Now let me ask you, how often do you undermine your own presence? How often do you avoid eye contact, slump your shoulders, or make yourself small in conversations? How often do you use phrases like, "I'm sorry, but," or "this might be a dumb idea, but," before sharing your thoughts? You don't even realize it, but every time you do this, you are telling people, "Do not take me seriously." So what happens when you stop? What happens when you start carrying yourself like someone worthy of respect? Everything changes. People listen, they notice, they engage. Not because you've magically become more valuable overnight, but because you've stopped acting like you're unworthy. And let's be clear, this isn't about arrogance. It's not about being the loudest in the room or forcing respect through intimidation. It's about quiet, unshakable confidence. The kind that makes people take notice not because you demand it, but because your presence alone commands it. And when you do this, something even more powerful happens. You stop attracting people who only respect you when you're small. Because let's be real, some people in your life are comfortable with you playing small. They like you unsure. They like you hesitant. Because the moment you step into your power, they know they can no longer control you. So here's the final truth you need to accept. Not everyone will like the version of you that demands respect. Some will resist it. Some will try to make you feel guilty for changing. Some will walk away. Let them. Because the people who belong in your life, the people who truly value you, will never ask you to shrink yourself to make them comfortable. So I ask you, are you ready to stop waiting for respect and start commanding it? Are you ready to carry yourself like someone who deserves to be seen, to be heard, to be valued? Because the moment you decide that you do, the world will have no choice but to follow. There comes a moment in everyone's life when they realize they are standing in their own way. Maybe you've felt it, the frustration of watching the same patterns repeat, the exhaustion of fighting battles that never seem to end, the quiet voice in your head whispering, "Why do I keep doing this to myself?" You say you want happiness, yet you stay in situations that break you. You say you want success, yet you doubt yourself before you even start. You say you want peace, yet you hold on to people and habits that only bring chaos. Why? Because deep down, a part of you believes this is all you deserve. Let that sink in. Every decision you make is a reflection of what you think you are worthy of. Every relationship you tolerate, every opportunity you pass up, every time you silence your own voice. It all comes down to what you believe about you. And until you change that belief, nothing else will change. I knew a man who was brilliant, creative, and full of potential, but no matter how many opportunities came his way, he found a way to sabotage them. He procrastinated, made excuses, let fear paralyze him. He told himself, maybe I'm just not meant for success. But the truth was, he had spent so many years believing he wasn't good enough that when success finally knocked on his door, he couldn't open it. He was trapped by his own self-image, and maybe you are too. Maybe you've been telling yourself the same story for years. I'm not smart enough. I'm not strong enough. I'm not lucky enough. I'm not worthy enough. And the more you repeat it, the more it becomes your reality. But here's what I need you to hear. That story is a lie. It is a script someone else handed you. Maybe a critical parent, a toxic relationship, a failure from your past, and you've been reciting it ever since. But just because you've believed something for a long time doesn't make it true. So I'll ask you, what if you started telling yourself a new story? What if you woke up tomorrow and decided, I am enough, I am worthy, I am capable? What if, instead of doubting yourself, you bet on yourself? What if, instead of waiting for permission to be great, you stepped into it with everything you have? Because here's the reality. No one is coming to save you. No one is coming to change your life for you. No one is going to hand you self-worth on a silver platter. It is a choice you must make every single day to stop settling, to stop shrinking, to stop believing the lies that have held you hostage for too long. And when you make that choice, everything shifts. You stop seeking validation from people who never deserved a say in your life. You stop staying in places that drain you. You stop making yourself small just to make others comfortable. You start demanding more. You start taking risks. You start showing up for yourself in ways you never have before. And yes, it will be uncomfortable. Growth always is. When you start choosing yourself, the people who benefited from your insecurity will push back. They will tell you that you've changed. As if that's a bad thing. They will try to pull you back into the old version of yourself, the one who accepted less, who stayed quiet, who doubted their worth. Don't go back. Because the truth is, you were never meant to stay small. You were never meant to dim your light. You were never meant to be anything less than extraordinary. So let me ask you, how much longer will you let an old version of yourself dictate your future? How much longer will you let fear make your choices for you? How much longer will you wait to finally believe in the person you are meant to be? The moment you decide you are enough is the moment your life begins to change. Are you ready?